Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. Thank you very much, as always, for listening to the show, for watching, however you consume Talking Buffalo. I appreciate you all very, very much. Also, shout out to our sponsor, Sunny Reds, 1841 Aber Road, not far from Highmark Stadium. Most of you are going to be listening to this sometime on Wednesday. Depending on when you do, get on up to Sunny Reds Wednesday night. I'm actually going to be there doing a live episode of this podcast. 8 p.m. I'll be there. Chris Trapasso from CBS Sports, Nate Gary from WGR 550. Both of them will be with me talking Bills, NFL, draft. Going to be a fun time. And also 50-cent wings on Wednesday night at Sunny Reds. Best deal in town. Some of the best wings in town. So make sure you stop up if you can and check that out. I am joined as usual for my midweek Wednesday episode. We're recording this early on Tuesday. My good friend Matt Warren from SB Nation. What's up, dude? How you doing, man?
Good. Everything's going well. Got some lacrosse stuff going on. We were at the Bandits game over the weekend, and that was a pretty fun time. Fan appreciation night. They got the win at the end, so that was always good.
I noticed that. I saw that on Twitter that you were going to be up in Buffalo for the game. And I didn't see it till last second though, and I was already out doing my Saturday boozing thing. But would have been nice to hook up with you. Maybe next time we will. We're going to spend some time today talking. We're going to go through this Bills roster positionally, and it's not really a state of the roster per se kind of examination, but more so going through these positions and trying to figure out what the present and the future of these positions are, and also as it pertains to next week's NFL draft. I mean, it's
Mhm.
obvious that corner and defensive tackle, of course, those are going to be priorities. But I feel like as we go through this team positionally, you start to see some guys that, you this might be their last year in Buffalo, whether they're already going to be a free agent, a couple cases where they may be under contract, but it would be easy for the Bills to get out from that contract after this year, where this year they're kind of married to a player. And let me get your thoughts on this too, Matt, because I think one of the misperceptions that a lot of us, including me at times, have when it comes to the NFL draft is we solely think about this year's team, this
Mm.
year's roster. Like what pieces, it almost feels like free agency. What pieces can you plug in right now that's going to make this team better right now? And that absolutely matters, especially at the top of the draft. But the draft isn't about just the present, it's also about the future, right? You got to start thinking 1 year, even 2 years at times ahead when it comes. You kind of get that feeling that sometimes fans, media, content creators, all of us, we get a little fixated solely on this year as opposed to the big picture.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm kind of like in the same boat as that. And I do it all the time. Did it a little bit during our draft yesterday, which by the way, before we get into today's stuff, I want to I'm gonna pull this up on the screen if you're watching on the video side. Bruce Nolan joined me and we had a full 7 round Buffalo Bills mock draft with trades, and we did make 2 trades. This was the third in a series of 4 Bills mock drafts on this podcast. And I got to tell you, if you didn't watch or listen to yesterday's show, go back and do that because Bruce Nolan always a party when Bruce is on the show, and he takes this shit really, really serious. I mean, we were going through it all the possibilities, all the scenarios. Again, we pulled the trigger on 2 trades, and even in the 4th and 5th round, he's examining what players are available, who's picking ahead. It was just a really thorough and fun time. But Matt, 7 consecutive. I've never seen this before. 7 consecutive defensive players selected by Bruce Nolan. Let me run down the list and I'll get your thoughts. I got it up on the video side. On the audio side, I'll tell you exactly what we did on yesterday's show. So we moved down from 30 to 40 with the New Orleans Saints. We traded 30 and 132 for 40 and 71. So we got out of the first round, picked up a third rounder, kind of like last year, but an earlier third rounder and a later second rounder. Bruce took quarterback Azari Thomas from Florida State. He liked him a lot, talked him up. Again, go back and I'm not going to give insight on these picks, but go back and listen to the show. And Bruce had plenty of that. Second round, Xavier Watts, a safety from Notre Dame. We're going to talk about him a little later in the show, that position. He also selected Joshua Farmer, defensive tackle in round two. Then with that third round pick that we picked up in the Saints trade, we took an edge rusher, Jordan Birch from Oregon. Jordan Phillips in round four, a different Jordan Phillips for casual Bills fans, or a rookie who plays the same position too, defensive tackle, coming into the league. Bruce took him in round four. Round five, I believe it was round five, might be real late round four, but Q Robinson, an edge rusher from Alabama, who's also a core special teams guy. Bruce went with him there. Took a linebacker, Cody Simon from Ohio State at pick 170. Second consecutive week he's been picked on this our mock drafts. Anthony Prohaska took him as well. Same spot last week. Finally took a wide receiver. Finally took an offensive player at pick 171. Isaac Tesla, a wide receiver. Then we came back with a running back project. Jaden Blue from Texas at pick 206. And then an interior offensive lineman, Garrett Dellinger at pick 221 with our last pick. What would you say if this was a real draft? The Bills took 7 consecutive defensive players. You look at this list. I know you, at least to some extent, you're starting to really catch up on these draft prospects and stuff
Mhm.
like that. What do you think of this?
I mean, just picking 7 straight defensive players, and I'm sure Bruce mentioned this, like it seems illogical, or that's probably the wrong way to even describe it. Like it would seem unlikely that Brandon Beane would make 7 straight defensive picks, but if the board fell this way, I think that there's value in a lot of these players. And so it wouldn't surprise me at all to see it actually play out that way. It just seems really weird to look at. um, but
Yeah.
like you could see a path to the roster for pretty much every player on this list, and that's kind of what I'm going to keep saying over the course of the next, I don't know, week and a half, 2 weeks until we get to the draft. It's like, what's the path to the roster? And that's why this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this and let's just say that this does happen, okay? And we're projecting. Look, a couple of years ago in 2022, if you and I were doing this podcast week before the draft and Kyrie Elam was the mock guy, that the Bills got mocked to, you'd be like, that's your day one starting corner. It's a whole first round guy, plug and play. That would have been what we said in 2022. Obviously, it didn't play out that way. We also probably would have just glossed over Christian Benford is a 6th round pick and be like, he's got a path to the roster, like you just said.
Mhm.
He turns into one of the best corners in the NFL. So obviously, you never know. On the surface, though, it feels to me, if you line up the prospect and what their ceiling seems to be, you're talking you're going to get a day one starter at corner in
Mhm.
Thomas, absolutely a day one starter in Xavier Watts at safety, which again we'll get to in a little while. And then with Farmer and Birch, those are 2 young rotational guys. It's almost like if you're not Ed Oliver and Greg Rousseau, Matt, on the defensive line, there almost is no starter. Don't you feel that way? It's almost like it's rotation. You're playing 45 to 55% of the snaps, whether you start or not. If your name isn't, again, if you're not Ed, if you're not Groot, right?
Yeah, I think so. Especially like, I mean, I might put Daquan Jones in there as like a quote unquote starter, but the way he's played over the last 12 months, I'll say, like he's definitely getting more into that rotational piece than like, bona fide, like, number one snap guy.
Yeah, I'll tell you, in a different world, I would question if Daquan Jones was even going to be on this roster come week one. But the fact
I
that the
still don't
Bills,
know if he's going to be. Yeah.
right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, this draft
Mhm.
will obviously matter a lot to him. Yeah, but they also, if they would have signed a more established one tech defensive tackle in free agency, if you couple that with the draft, then I'd say his position on this team would be in serious jeopardy. Right now, I just think anything could happen. Anyway, all right, let's do this. Again, we're gonna go through positions and we'll talk a little bit NFL if we got some time left at the end as well. Just trying to get a feel for where this team stands for now and and in the not too distant future. And we'll start with quarterback because I just think, this one doesn't really need a lot of explanation. Josh Allen's here. Josh Allen's not going anywhere anytime soon. And then you look at the backups. Um, Mitch Trubisky is signed through this year. Mike White is signed through this year. I don't think that both of them are going to be on the 53-man roster. They're going to carry two quarterbacks. It's very likely they're going to have a competition. May the best man win for this year. I guess what I would ask you with this position is this. Do you see the Bills have 3 fifth-round picks as things stand right now? Do you see a realistic scenario where maybe they use one of those fifth-round picks on a quarterback that they could try to develop into being a number two? And before you answer that, let me also say this because this is important. I think people don't see this big picture. What I just said, it doesn't always play out that way. If you get a guy in the fourth or fifth round, you better count on him making the roster because if he doesn't make the active roster, he's probably not going to get to the practice squad. If you release him, there's a good chance at a fifth round guy, they're probably going to get claimed by somebody because there are other teams I'm sure that wanted to draft that prospect. So you can't just always assume, hey, let's take a quarterback in the fifth. We'll have him be the third guy. We'll put him on the practice squad, let him sit a year and learn and redshirt. Don't always work out that way. You get what I'm saying. But anyway, what are your thoughts potentially to taking a developmental quarterback in this draft?
Uh, I mean, I think that it's certainly, like you said, a path to the roster. Only $1 million of Mitch Trubisky's salary is fully guaranteed for this year. So if they cut him and he gets signed by anybody for like the league minimum, like the Bills would be completely off the hook for his money. So I don't think that that is really important. But the Bills could save like I don't know $2.5 million or so. Wait, that's not right. Like a $1.5 million or so by replacing Mitch Trubisky with a late round draft pick if they feel like that's the direction that they want to go. At the same time, you're talking about some guys in this quarterback class that I don't know. It's not the best quarterback class, let's
Sure.
just say. And so the guys that are going to be there in the fifth and sixth round aren't necessarily guys I would be like, running up to the podium to put in my card for. And so I think that all of that kind of comes back to saying that next year is probably the year for that as opposed to this year.
Yeah, I'm a Notre Dame guy, so I think of Riley Leonard is like
Hmm.
that fifth round kind of possibility. But to your point, I don't expect it to happen this year. Um, there's a school of thought if Josh goes down, does it really matter anyway? Just like if Mahomes goes down, Joe Burrow goes down, it doesn't really matter. It just feels like you may as well just find the best experienced number two out there each season that
Hmm.
can play 2 to 3 games, ideally, if you need him to, and maybe they continue down that path. All right, so and again, that's pretty much it with quarterback. Not much to get into. Running back here. Now this to me might be the most intriguing thing because the Bills have three really good running backs. Okay, Ray
Hmm.
Davis still has 3 years under his he's still got 3 years on his deal. Ty Johnson just re-signed for 2 years. Those guys ain't going nowhere this year. James Cook is obviously the big wild card. He's going into the final year of his contract. He wants a new deal. He wants a lot of money. The Bills seem at this time really intent on not giving him that money. We've had lots of discussions about, possible holdouts or hold-ins and all that other shit. We've already, covered all that. When it comes to the draft, though, and this is where I get really intrigued, and Bruce and I talked about this some last night on the show as well. If you, the school of thought is okay, well, if you're not trading James Cook, by the way, this is all predicated on the Bills not trading James Cook. They're letting him play it out. There's been reports. Yeah, I saw Ian Rappaport said it's very likely, that he stays with Buffalo. He's not going anywhere this year. Play it out, see what happens. If that's going to be the case, you want to take a running back. The school of thought is, well, we'll take a running back and, we'll just, again, kind of develop him this year. And then we got a guy, once James Cook leaves. Here's the issue. Just like I said, if you're going to take a guy, if you're going to take a guy near the end of the draft, it's unlikely he makes the roster anyway, or that he contributes, I should say. But if you're looking to potentially be a committee replacement type player, you're probably talking third to fifth round in that area for a rookie running back. if you have any real expectations for him anyway. If you take that, are you going to roster 4 tailbacks this season? Because you're not cutting any of those 3 guys. And if you take that 4th guy, don't you feel like, Matt, it's almost like he has to be a special teams guy too? Like he's got to be able to play special teams. Ideally, maybe he's even a kick returner as well. Because just having a straight up running back like Cook pretty much is, or like Ray Davis pretty much is, they don't really do anything on special teams. It just roster wise, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to have 4. So that's why I'm not so confident that the Bills are going to take a running back this year. At least not one before it gets to round 6 where you're kind of rolling the dice and, thinking about the future. What do you think about that?
I'm not one to waste a year of a running back's rookie contract,
Right.
riding the bench and being inactive. So I agree with you about like the special teams aspect. That's the only way I would draft a running back at all, really. I'm not even of the opinion that they necessarily need to do like the late round like flyer because that guy's going to end up on the practice squad.
Yeah.
We saw what Ray Davis was able to do last year in his rookie season, and like not as like a high pick. And so if James Cook does end up leaving after this year, they can just plug and go with another third or fourth round pick, like they've been doing over the last several years with Brandon Beane. So I'm not of the opinion that they're going to be taking a running back unless they're going to try to shoehorn in like a returner or some special teams thing.
Yeah, I would suspect that they want to give Ray Davis a little more lengthy look at times this year as well, coupled with everything you said, which I completely agree with him. And Bruce was talking about that too on the show yesterday. Almost feels like, you want to draft a rookie running back because you get that cheap contract, but you're burning 25% of his rookie contract and him not even seeing the field. It feels like a hypocritical thing to do to take a rookie, because of that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, if James Cook gets traded, all bets are off. Put it this way, folks. If the Bills happen to take a running back between round 2 and 4, I would start sounding the is James Cook about to get traded alarm really, really quick. You know what I mean? If they take a guy in the first 100 picks, it almost feels like, yep, James Cook's about to be gone, right?
I
Don't
would
see
think
it.
so. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see it happening. I'm just saying it's a possibility.
Mhm.
Um, Wide receivers to me, this is pretty interesting because the Bills have brought in a lot of wide receivers for visits and Zoom meetings, a couple private workouts. When you look at the wide receiver position, Khalil Shakir just signed an extension, so he's here long term. Keon Coleman, early second round pick, still got 3 years left on his deal. Josh Palmer just signed a 3-year contract. I would assume at least those first 2 years, he's pretty locked in to this football team right now. So ideally, I'm sure the Bills hope that those are going to be their big 3, over the next couple of years. Curtis Samuel's the 4th guy. He's still got 2 years left on his contract, but the Bills could get out of it after this year. Not happening this year. Financially, it would be a disaster to just cut him right now. Um, they would save like 6.2 million in 2026. They'd have to eat some dead cap though. But if they cut Curtis Samuel after this year, wide receiver to me feels like, and you kind of look at the guys that are coming in to visit Williams, Royal, lots of guys like that. 3rd, 4th, 5th round guy, but again, it keeps going to special teams. I keep bringing this up. 4 guys right now, the top 4 receivers don't really have any special teams prowess whatsoever. You're gonna draft a 5th receiver who doesn't play special teams? It don't feel right to me. You know what I mean? Like, what are you seeing right now, a wide receiver? Because again, this is a team they don't need one right now either. You there? Freezing?
I'm here.
Oh, all right. I'll just say, what's your thoughts right now in terms of wide receiver? Feels like a mid round type guy who's going to come in and be wide receiver 5 probably his rookie year. Do you roster or do you want to roster a wide receiver 5 who doesn't play special teams?
Right, yeah, and they need a Mac Hollins replacement, right? They need that guy that can come in, play some special team snaps. They have Terrell Shavers kind of on the roster. Laviska, Chenault are like their special teams returner guys, but they don't really have like that gunner or that the guy that's going to fly down the field and make tackles on your kicking teams. And so they could definitely add that, but I mean, you talked at the top of the show about Bruce Nolan picking 7 straight defensive players, and I mean, pretty much every position you're going through so far, you're like, yeah, they don't really need anyone on this position group, and so it makes sense that you would go so many defensive players in a row when you are seemingly set at a lot of those core 53-man roster spots.
Yeah, that's the funny part. So when you see something sometimes on its surface, you're like, 7 straight defensive players, you gotta be kidding me. But then as we're starting to go through these positions, like, well, no, they're not taking a quarterback. If they're taking a
Mm-hmm.
running back, it's gonna be a guy who better play special teams. If they're taking a wide receiver, you're kinda looking for, I would say, a Mac Hollins type of
Yeah.
player for the Bills right now. Maybe, yeah, obviously younger and maybe could stretch the field a little bit better. Um, and continuing that, like, well, let's sit up tight ends here. Dalton Kincaid is not going anywhere. He's here for another 3 years under contract. Well, at least 2 plus a third-year option.
Mm-hmm.
Dawson Knox has 2 years left. Now the Bills, again, they could get out of his contract after this year. They would eat 7.4 million in dead money, and they could save close to 10 million, 9.6 million in savings potentially for 2026. I think that's legitimately on the table. Quentin
Mm-hmm.
Morris is not re-signed. I think they got Zach Davison as a developmental guy is right now anyway, your tight end 3. Um, I can't believe I'm talking about I probably have said the word special teams more in the first 20 minutes of this podcast than I have in about a year. But here we are again. Quentin Morris was a core special teams player for the
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo Bills and that tight end 3. That seems like a position in this draft. Now, Bruce did not take a tight end in our mock draft. And if I'm correct, I'm not sure that Anthony Baraska or David Tilton did either. Not even sure we've taken a tight end in any of these 3 mock drafts. I kind of feel like I disagree with those guys. Like, this could be where you go get a 5th round guy. Again, he's got to be able to play some special teams, but and also, in this case, talking about looking into the future a little bit, Dawson Knox plays a lot of snaps. Like, you can get a guy who could be your tight end 2 after this year for Dawson Knox if you're thinking about the economical part of the roster building. Is this a position that you could see maybe a guy gets taken earlier than most people think?
That was the one thing that stuck out to me on when you did show Bruce's mock is that he didn't take a tight end. And I do think that there's like we keep talking about path to the roster for these guys that we draft. And there's a significant path to the roster for any tight end that they draft or sign over the next couple of weeks. And I still want Quentin Morris back. I'm just very curious what's going on, behind the scenes there. Like maybe they're like, oh, we'll see if we draft somebody and then we can sign him after the draft or something like that. But to your point, like the special teams thing is a very real thing. Like he played a lot of special team snaps, and asking, say, like that rookie 5th rounder or whatever to come in and play like a significant special teams role right off the bat when they might not have been used to doing that in their college careers, it's just not necessarily like flipping a switch. And so I'm very interested to see what they do at that tight end slash special teams tight end role going forward. But it's definitely his path to the roster, and that's what we keep talking about.
It's again, it's going back to the special teams thing. Mac
Mhm.
Hollins, Quentin Morris, 2
Mhm.
positions that I think could be kind of filled with those type of players in this draft. 2 very important special team players to the Buffalo Bills last year. Last thing on offense here is the O-line. Now, it's set. All the starters are back, and they got pretty good depth right now. Alec Anderson, Grable, maybe Van Pran Granger. We'll see. But right now, McGovern, David Edwards. They're in the final years of their contracts. Discussed this as well the last couple weeks during our mock as well. Anderson will be a restricted free agent after this year's, but he'll be restricted. Um, but you got to start looking at this too. And this is something I've kind of been thinking a little bit about lately. You say the name Dion Dawkins, and he's one of the
Mhm.
best left tackles in football. There's no question about that. And I like him a lot. And it goes without saying. But he's still got 3 years left on his contract, but he's also 31 years old. And when you get to that age in the NFL, it's inevitable that his play's going to fall off at some point. Do you proactively try to get maybe a left tackle in the 3rd? I know the Bills don't have a 3rd round pick right now, but there's lots of scenarios where they could end up with a third round pick.
Right.
I'll say early date, let's say late day 2, early day 3. Is it out of the realm for the Bills to maybe take a tackle and start to develop him? This could be, you look at Dion Dawkins financially. Again, he's got 3 years left. If they were to get out of his contract, say after next year, 14.4 million in dead cap, 8.8 in savings. Doesn't feel that great of a benefit financially. You're eating over 14 to save just under 9. However, again, if his play were to fall off, it's a different story. And if you cut him post June 1st, they could save like almost 17 million next year. Again, he's 31. Sooner or later, his play's going to fall off. It's not right now. I'm just saying, does this feel like the right time to maybe take a tackle? And also, like I said, you got 2 interior guys who are in the last year of their contract, but I don't know how much stock you put into private visits and workouts. Like Ryan Talbot's been, having his tracker, keeping up
Mhm.
with everybody. There's been 16 reported private visits as of this recording, 8 private workouts, Zoom calls. 0 of them have been on the offensive line. Literally 0. There was one Zoom call with an offensive line prospect. His name is Jared Penning from Northern Iowa. And every outlet I've looked at, he's not even a draftable guy, or he's not even expected to be drafted, I should say. So there's no kind of blue chip or even mid-round guys that the Bills have met with personally that we know of right now. Like, well, what do you think of this offensive line? Because it is stacked for now, but next year is another story.
Let's start with the position and address the Dion Dawkins thing. They didn't give him a 3-year contract last offseason to cut him after this year, I don't think.
Mhm.
And so they're planning on him playing at a really high level in 2025 and 2026. So I think let's start there.
Sure.
But then if you look at the backup position, like they've done a great job of developing interior offensive line depth. When you bring along, a David Edwards as your sixth offensive lineman, now you're bringing along Alec Anderson. They haven't really done that at tackle. And, Ryan Vandermark, as like he can get by for a game, but if they really like and they haven't had a significant offensive line injury for a very long time. But if they had a significant injury to a Spencer Brown, to a Dion Dawkins, I don't know if they have the talent behind them to sustain like really solid play over the course of a period of time. So I do think that backup tackle spot is wide open. They drafted Tylon Grable, excuse me, in the 6th round last year. So is that a significant enough investment? Do they like him enough? Like they churn the back end of their offensive line a lot, and so it would not surprise me at all to see them, invest a 4th or a 5th round pick in a backup offensive tackle that could potentially replace Dion Dawkins in the future. I don't think it's like a looming need to replace Dion Dawkins, but like have that guy in your system, draft and develop that kind of play. Moving inside to the interior, I really don't know what to say here because I don't know what they think of Cedric Van Prank Granger. I don't know what they think of, Mike Edwards or some of these other like depth guys. Do they think Alec Anderson can step into a starting role if David Edwards leaves? Like all of those things kind of happen at, behind the scenes. And so I'm not 100% sure of the path to the roster, but I do think that looking ahead, like the Edwards McGovern kind of pairing there, all both being in the last year of their deal, is an area of concern. So it really has to do more with what they think of the guys they've already invested those late-round draft picks in and tried to develop than it does like just looking at the starters and trying to project into the future.
Yeah, and I think you brought this up. We've been a little bit spoiled these last couple of years. The Bills have avoided
Yes.
any significant injuries to the offensive line. The last 2 years combined, one guy has missed one game, and that was Spencer Brown against the Chiefs. And it didn't matter that game. Ryan Vandermark for that specific game was fine. I could
Mhm.
see them investing in a potential swing tackle.
Mhm.
I could see that. Outside of that, it's going to be a late round guy that maybe you hit on. You got starters, and that's not to say McGovern or Edwards, they don't re-sign one or both of them when it's all said and done as well. With Anderson, I think they like Grable. From what I've heard, they were really happy with how he looked in year one. Yeah, it's an interesting position, but on the surface, it doesn't feel like they really need to do much. Quick break, and then we're going to get to the side of the field where we all know change is definitely coming. We'll kind of go through those positions and where some of these contracts stand right after this quick break. All right, I am back here with Matt Warren from SB Nation, trying to plow through some wild guess internet issues here. I'm getting really tired of having internet issues. I do have some plans though where the internet won't be as important, at least Wi-Fi. Hopefully, I'll be able to take care of that in the next few weeks. But anyway, no big deal. All right, so we talked about the offensive side of the field where it feels like the Bills are not expected to invest much. And if they do, it's probably going to start with no earlier than say round 3 or 4. And maybe they're looking for some depth and slash special team guys. Defensive side of the ball, a completely different story. Let's start defensive tackle here. Ed Oliver, good to go. He's got 3 years left. Dude ain't going nowhere. All right. Dwayne Carter just burned the first year of his rookie deal. He's got a lot to prove. He's still under contract though for 3 years. I'm sure he's going to get another long look this year as well. After that, though, Daquan Jones, final year of his deal. Larry Ogunjobi, a 1-year contract where he's also going to serve a 6-game suspension. So a third of his regular season is gone. I mean, it kind of goes without saying here, but defensive tackle is a very big priority. It could go as early as the first round for sure. That wouldn't surprise you. Bruce double dipped. You see a double dip scenario at this position?
I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they drafted 3 defensive tackles. I mean, let's be honest here. They could really do 2 1-tech defensive tackles in this draft and a 3-tech defensive tackle. And so, because we already talked last week about Daquan Jones doesn't have any guaranteed salary this year, they can go all the way until the end of training camp and roster cuts before they have to like really make their decision on Daquan Jones. And so, if you draft an early 1-tech and then later in the draft pick up a developmental prospect, like you can see how that guy goes through training camp. You can see how that guy goes through the preseason before you really have to make up your mind on Daquan Jones. So I fully expect them to double dip at the defensive tackle position, especially because it's a super deep position in this year's draft. Like they're going to get talent, in the middle rounds at defensive tackle if they pick someone there. And so it would not surprise. I mean, I expect them to double dip. It wouldn't surprise me if they triple dipped at the defensive tackle position.
Yeah, and I know there's some guys out there like say the veteran Jordan Phillips, because like I said, we drafted a rookie Jordan Phillips yesterday in our mock.
Right.
Even Quinn Jefferson. These guys are hanging around. The Bills could always call them up after the draft if
Mhm.
things don't fall their way. But I think ideally, you really want to draft a couple guys, which would make this. Well, Larry Ogunjobi will be back. So I was going to say it's a young position, but it's really not. Not this year anyway, because of Daquan Jones and Larry Ogunjobi. But yeah, I can see a first round guy potential, or even if it is a second
Mhm.
round guy, he's going to play. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. Ed Oliver and Groot will get their snaps, but all the other guys, it's almost like there is no, to me anyway, there's just no true starter. So they'll get a lot of opportunity to play as a rookie. It's kind of the same deal with Edge, right? I mean, Groot just signed an extension, obviously. Michael Hoyt is here on a 3-year deal. But again, he'll be suspended for 6 games. You got Javon Sullivan. He's locked in for another 3 years. And now in this position, you got AJ Epinesa in his last year, and Joey Bosa, just a 1-year deal. How do you feel about defensive end when it comes to this draft, knowing that it might not be your biggest priority? However, you could certainly stand to use another good edge rusher. Like, are your eyes going to be starting as early as 30 at this position as well? Because actually, mine are. If 1 or 2 guys fall their way.
It wouldn't. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they spent a first round draft pick on that, especially knowing that Bosa and Epinesa are both going to be free agents at the end of 2025. And I mean, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of them trading EJ Epinesa either. I'm just going to throw that into the mix here too. So, like, it wouldn't surprise me at all if that happens. I don't think it's going to be their top priority, but they obviously want to keep throwing pass rushers at Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes and the rest of the AFC. And so it's going to be imperative that they keep trying to upgrade that position, including in the draft.
Um, Yesterday on our mock, and actually with Anthony before, there were different guys, but both of them took an edge rusher on day 2 of the draft.
Mhm.
Let's just say, forget the name, doesn't matter who the prospect is, whatever prospect it may be. You take an edge guy on day 2, okay? And so you got Bosa and you got Groot, you got Epinesa and Michael Hoyt when he does come back, and the Bills are pretty high on Michael Hoyt. You draft another guy in day 2, you're gonna have expectations. Trying to think. Like what you say about AJ Epinesa, first of all, that definitely makes sense, especially if you can get any kind of value for him. Maybe my thought was, although I kind of liked what I saw from him in flashes as a rookie,
Yeah.
maybe Javon Sullivan's spot on this team is not like 100% locked down, like say Greg Rizzo's is, because depending on what you do with the draft, you're talking Javon Sullivan, it becomes your 6th, possibly at camp, your 7th defensive end, man. So I'm not sure that that's a set in stone. He's definitely on this team type player right now. You kind of feel the same?
Yeah, I do agree with that. And the only reason I mentioned Epinesa is because like they might get a little bit of a fall off in play. Say if they draft a guy in round 2 and put him in, excuse me, instead of Epinesa. But I mean, he's going to make $5.8 million in salary this year. I mean, they could really save some cap space, and they're obviously in cap management mode. They've done that over the last couple
Mhm.
off seasons now. So it could make sense financially for them if they think that they can stay even or maybe take just a smidge of a step back but clear up that much cap space. I think that that makes a lot of sense. And so I mean, because Javon Solomon's 1 million, like he's like one of those minimum guys. Same thing with
Right.
if you draft like say a guy in like the 6th round, like so. I do think that there's like roster construction things that go on past whether it's like the last year of his deal or not.
Like to throw this in there a little, sneak this in. I like Javon Sullivan. I think he could be. I think I'm not saying he's going to be another Leonard Floyd. All right, so I want to be careful with my wording here, but I could see him being that type of guy, a guy who's really good at getting after the quarterback. I could see him with opportunity and development being a 6 to 8 sack guy and playing 45 to 50% of the snaps type player, which to me, if they draft young, I mean, early enough and they're looking to move on, to your point, I think AJ Epinesa definitely could be a guy that they try to trade. Or if they can't, he might be a cut at some point too. Who the hell knows? Linebacker, this will be about the future, obviously. They're locked in this year. They got Terrell Bernard. Matt Milano reworked his deal. Bernard just signed an extension. Matt Milano, obviously, he's in the last year of his contract now. Dorian Williams, you got 2 more years of him. Balen Spector, final year of his contract. And you know how it goes with him staying healthy. Cody Simon from Ohio State has been mocked. I know in the last 2 mock drafts of mine, maybe all 3, there's been a linebacker. It feels like for sure a linebacker's coming in this draft, probably as a Balen Spector slash replacement slash special teams guy for now. Um, it's been the Bills' ammo to take guys in the 3rd round. They took Bernard in the 3rd, they took Dorian Williams in the 3rd. And you kind of see that late, early or early day 3, late day 2 type linebacker for the Bills. You see it?
I, like you said, they've shown that they're going to do that, and then they're going to stash the guy for a year in most cases or 2, and work him into the roster. And so it wouldn't like it's not certainly not out of the realm of possibility. I think they're going to draft a linebacker no matter what. That Balen Spector, Joe Andreessen, roster spot, is not is not going to stop them from drafting linebackers and upgrading at that position. I don't know if they're going to go all the way up to the 3rd round like they've done in the past, just because they already have their top 3 in place. And if you draft a 3rd round guy, you really want him to have a path to playing time. If not in year 1, in year 2. And I understand that Matt Milano's in the last year of his deal and all that, but yeah, I don't necessarily know if 3rd round this year is the way to go, but like a 5th round pick for sure, I think is like on like my radar.
Let me give you a let me throw you out a name here for fun. Um,
Okay.
and it's practical too, actually. And I know Bills fans or Buffalo fans are gonna like this. Sean Dolak. And people are like, oh, he's a hometown kid. There's better linebackers out there, yada, 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 yada. I'll say this. I was looking through I was studying The Athletic, the Beast, the guide,
Mhm, mhm,
and
mhm.
I went to pulled up Sean Dolak's profile. Take a wild guess. What have we been talking? What did I just say that I've hit on more this episode than I've done in a year? Special teams, right?
Special
Sean
teams, yes.
Dolak, where Dane Brugler said the player that he can remind him of. Guess who it was?
Uh, Um, I don't know. Sorry.
He's I don't know, nobody's gonna know unless you read it. Tyler Matekovich,
Oh,
special teams
okay.
ace. Doesn't that sound like the kind of guy the Bills could use in a linebacker? I mean, he's one of the most productive players in
Yeah.
college football as a linebacker, and he projects him as a guy who could be an outstanding special teams guy, man. So if when you look at it that way, like a lot of people are saying he's going to be Matt Milano's replacement. That's not happening. They're not drafting him to be Matt Milano's replacement. He just doesn't have that athletic kind of skill set that a Matt Milano does. Not a lot of linebackers do. But when you combine it for football smarts and special teams ability or potential, anyway, Sean really doesn't play with special teams. But when I read the name Tyler Matekovich, I was like, oh shit, that makes a lot of sense. So we'll see. I'm going to skip corner. Okay, that's too obvious. Jerron Johnson, don't even. I know he's a corner, but to me, he's the nickel guy, the linebacker. You got Benford, he just signed. Dane Jackson's here his last year or a 1 year deal. Everybody knows they're going to try to upgrade from that. Jamarcus Ingram is the only other depth they have there right now that's even worth noting at this time. He'll be a what is it, an exclusive right free agent after this. They're taking a corner. They're probably taking two. They're going to take a corner. One of their first two picks, I'm willing to bet anybody is going to be a corner. So let's move on from that. I want to safety because this to me is intriguing. Bishop's here for 3 more years. Tamar Hamlin signed a 1 year deal. Forrest from Washington signed a 1 year deal. Taylor Rapp is here through to 2026, but you can cut him after this year. You're only eating like not even 700K in dead cap, and you could
Mhm.
save 3.35 million. So it's easy to get out from his contract after this year. Sean McDermott has talked him up. They like Cole Bishop. They went up in the second round and got him. Yesterday's mock, Xavier Watts. Every mock I've seen, Xavier Watts has been in the conversation for the Bills in round two. And again, me being a Notre Dame guy, I love me some Xavier Watts. He's got, he reminds me a little bit of Micah Hyde, man. He kind of has that
Oh,
type
okay.
of game to him. Do you see a safety going on day two? Because if you do, Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop go from being two starters to a competition at training camp with one of them starting. It feels to me like Sean really likes the leadership and the ability of Taylor Rapp. And again, with Bishop, a second round pick. Do you go back to back 2 second round picks on safeties? They also got Hamlin and Force in the mix. It doesn't feel likely to me. I almost feel like this is the position where a high safety going to the Bills feels like a myth to me. How do you feel about that?
Well, a person you didn't mention too was Cam Lewis, who's also in the last year of his deal, and he often acts as that backstop at safety too, even though he does
Yeah.
play nickel cornerback too.
Mhm.
So they really have a lot of players on the final year of their deal at safety. The Bills have always said that they built from the inside out. They want to address the lines and go from there. But two of their first biggest free agent signings were safety. It was Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. So they obviously really value that safety position and have spent money on that safety position over the years. So spending back-to-back second-round picks on a safety tandem to replace those two, you know, all-pro safeties wouldn't. It's not a weird value for me. It makes sense in my brain,
Yeah.
especially with the way that the offense is set up right now. And so looking at that, like, plus, I don't necessarily think that a second round safety is going to be in the mix to start. We saw what they did with Cole Bishop, putting him on the bench for the entire season, except for the injury replacement spots that opened up for him. Bringing a guy like that in to replace Taylor Rapp a year from now, or replace Damar Hamlin a year from now. Whoever ends up in the starting mix. I mean, I'm hoping that Bishop is one of the starters for the long term, but that's not even necessarily a given in itself. So, I mean, safety, it's not just a path to the roster, it's a path towards significant playing time if they invest like that second or third round pick in the safety position. So if I was doing a mock today, it would certainly be in play for me in round two.
Look, I want to be real clear. I will be ecstatic if they draft Xavier Watts or any safety, not any safety, but a handful of safeties
No,
on day two. I love the thought of it, man. And again, maybe I got a little bit spoiled seeing Hoyer or Poyer and Hyde through those
mhm,
years. Um, but if you draft a safety and if you draft him early, he's at least at the very least in the mix. A guy like
no,
Ford or Hamlin, one of those two guys are going to be your fifth safety on this
mhm,
roster. Um, Look, Damar Hamlin got a $2 million contract. Duke could end up starting or gonna end up getting cut.
yeah.
Financially, that's the way it goes with him, and it wouldn't be um a big deal. So
Watts might be the second best safety in the draft too. So if you end up getting him, say like in that mid second round, like that could be pretty good value. Andrew Makuba from Texas is a 4-year starter that could come in and play significant steps right off the bat too. Like I mean, there's some solid safeties in this group in that day two range.
yeah, I think going through the positions like we just did, I mean, we really didn't unearth everything. Defensive tackle and corner are going to be high priorities. I'd say edge is going to be a secondary, maybe safety, a secondary priority. Linebacker is going to be depth, just like on the offensive side of the ball. Offensive side of the ball to me feels like pretty much it's all going to be exclusively depth and special teams prowess with these guys. But when you look at the roster, like I said, guys that we brought up like Taylor Rapp that you could get out of his contract after this year. We both agree that AJ Epinesa to us has become replaceable. Curtis Samuel could be another guy. Like we could look a year from now and Taylor Rapp and Curtis Samuel could be two guys who are under contract that get cut. And maybe you account for that when it comes to this draft. Before we get out of here, a couple quick other things, which by
Well,
the way,
let me. I want to say one thing first too. Like I just looked back at the opening day, like the opening 53-man roster last year, and like if you look at the linebacker position, like Nicholas Morrow, Balen Spector, Edie Olafoshio, Joe Andreessen were your four backup linebackers. I know Milano was on, IR and all that stuff, but like there's roster spots to be had on this team, despite how good that they are. And we keep talking about like path to the rosters, path to the roster. Like they kept 10 defensive linemen last year. I would not like that. That seems to be where they like going, especially when they're throwing as much stuff against the wall as possible. So like drafting all those guys on defense makes total sense, and we like it shouldn't be like weird to us that that's happening.
yeah, and look, I mean, I'm glad you're right about linebacker too. There's spots for grabs, and it's not even just Balen Spector. Joe Andreessen is not set in stone to be on this football team for sure.
Right,
I'm not trying to diss the hometown kid, but he's not a roster
right.
lock. Olafoshio's not a roster. He was a fifth rounder last year either. If they don't like
Mhm.
what they see in year two and someone else is better, it's not like we drafted and we got to keep them. That's not the case at all whatsoever. So there's 1 to 3 potential openings at linebacker on this team. It'll be fun to track.
Mhm.
So we're recording this Tuesday morning, and Ian Rappaport early Tuesday morning put out a report that Jalen Ramsey and the Miami Dolphins have mutually agreed to try to find a trade option. We bashed the New York Jets in that front office so much for the decisions that they make, Woody Johnson makes, kind of compare them to like the Buffalo Sabres when it comes to football. I'll tell you, look at the big contracts Miami signed last year alone. It was just last year. Didn't they sign Jalen Ramsey and Tyreek Hill to these big extensions? Tyreek can't stay out of trouble. That's just who he is at this point. I mean, come on, it is what it is. Whether Miami continues to tolerate it, that's what it comes down to. Is the juice worth the squeeze when it comes to Tyreek Hill? But we all know what he is at this point. Jalen Ramsey not long ago just signed a huge deal. They're looking to trade him after they paid him a $4 million bonus too earlier last month. Um, he might be gone. And what Tua has got a big ass contract. Dude is a big health risk. These big contracts that they've given out, it's just wild to me. And then guys who are homegrown, like Hunt at guard, Christian Wilkins, a great defensive tackle, they go get paid somewhere else. If I'm a Miami Dolphins fan, and I'm not even saying this as a Bills guy to poke fun at them, I'm being dead ass right now. It's like, what are you doing? If you're the Miami Dolphins, you're a fan, and you look at this front office and the decisions that they make with their money, and just their personnel decisions, you got to wonder what in the hell are they doing, right? I mean, what's going on here? Now they want to trade Jalen Ramsey. Like, why? Why'd you sign him? Why?
Wa-
What's going on?
watching what's happening with the Dolphins makes me very happy as a Buffalo Bills fan. And like
Sure.
part of me wants to say like, well, this is what happens when you pay, an average quarterback, elite money. But I don't even think that's it. I think they're investing in positions that I think smart NFL teams are getting away from. Now, let's take the Eagles out of this for a second because they have the two of the most expensive wide receivers in the entire league. But you see teams shedding, you see like some of those elite teams shedding at the wide receiver position and letting their quarterback kind of take over. That's what the Bills are doing. That's what the Chiefs have done. Miami did the opposite. They traded for an aging Tyreek Hill. They just signed, a really big contract with Jalen Waddle, which I mean, I would love to have Jalen Waddle on my team. Don't get me wrong, but like instead of going out of their way to protect, Tua, they're going out of their way to give him weapons. And like, I would just go the opposite way. Like, if he's so good and Mike McDaniel's so good at designing offenses, like, put the ball into his hand, let him distribute it, get rid of Tyreek, keep Jalen Waddle, obviously, and like go from there. And I don't know, like, it feels like they reset their plan every like I don't know 6 weeks or something. Like, what's the long term vision here for Miami? Like, it just feels like throwing like all these great top end players onto the roster isn't a way to build a roster. It's like a Madden roster almost. Like, just doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't at all, man. I'm telling you, the New England Patriots are poised to become the second best team in this division as
Oh
early
yeah.
as this year.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think the Jets are kind of like willing to kind of tear it down and build it back up. I do like Aaron Glenn. I think eventually he's going to get shit right, but it's going to take some time, I feel like, with the Jets. Plus, I'm not the least bit sold on Justin Fields being a quarterback who's going to get them anywhere more than 6 to 9 wins max, somewhere in that window. But yeah, I mean, God, if I'm a Miami fan, I'm completely frustrated at the way my roster gets built. Let me switch sides. Now, this really don't have much to do with the Bills, but the New Orleans Saints to me are a really intriguing team, right? Because on one hand, it's like, well, first of all, how did they sign anybody? It feels like they were like a gazillion dollars over the cap, but they still got Brandon Cooks. They signed Justin Reed, which really pissed me off because I wanted the Bills to go get him. They signed Chase Young, and they got some decent weapons on this team. Crystal Lobby's a great receiver. Rashid Saeed is good. Juwan Johnson, pretty good tight end. Kamara, they got weapons, but now the quarterback, David Carr, is out, and he might not play this year. There's a possibility he doesn't play this year. What do you see the Saints doing at quarterback? And I'm sure he's going to love the attention, and maybe that's why he hasn't signed yet because he hasn't gotten enough of it. But Aaron Rodgers is still out there, and yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers are a better organization and a better team than the Saints, but the Pittsburgh Steelers are playing in the same division as the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals, whereas New Orleans, the NFC South's whack. If you're Aaron Rodgers, should you consider the Saints? And if he's not going to, what do you think the Saints do at quarterback? Is it Kirk Cousins? Do they go get one of these first round rookies early? What are you thinking right now? Because again, you signed players that say that we can win our division. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Saints have been a completely unserious football team since Drew Brees retired. It feels like they want to finish 9-7 or whatever, 9-8 every single year because like they just keep pushing cap into the future and signing, enough draft picks to be really good without actually taking their salary cap medicine like the Bills did last year, to a certain extent. And so I don't know. If I'm the Saints, like they're probably going to get a year long Spencer Rattler like preview, but like just looking at some of the guys that are out there, like there's not. I personally don't think Aaron Rodgers is a good fit for them. But you know, what other guys are even out there? It's like Carson Wentz, like or something. Like I don't even like you could do the trade for Kirk Cousins, but are the Falcons wanting to trade him inside their own division to one of their fiercest rivals? Like it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like so, Spencer Rattler, dude. Like
Is there any fierce rivals in the NFC South? Is there such thing as a
I
fierce
mean,
rival?
yes, the Falcons and the Saints fans hate each other like with the passion of a thousand suns, and so
Yeah.
like I mean they haven't been good enough over the last few years, like kind of like how the Miami and Buffalo rivalry died out for a long time when Buffalo sucked and Miami was kind of middling, but like they still hate each other. Don't get that wrong.
I feel like the Patriots maybe should have held on to Joe Milton a little longer. Maybe they could have got him more. An opportunity would have opened up. They traded him to Dallas already, and I didn't feel like they got great comp for him. Could have seen him with with the Saints. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know, but it's gonna be interesting to see what they do at quarterback because yeah, they are an unserious organization, but they're in a weak division and they got a roster that's competitive enough to win. Derek Carr losing him potentially is a big blow. Last thing, I got you here now. You'll be on next week too, day before the NFL draft starts. But as things stand right now, is there anything about this draft like that you find really intriguing? Like what's the most intriguing thing to you about this draft right now, if anything?
Yeah, I there's the biggest thing to me is that there have been no trades inside the top 40 picks, and so that's like it's super intriguing for me because no teams are like positioning themselves to go up and get somebody, or like obviously the fact that there have been no first round picks traded yet also has to do with like last year's draft and nobody using a future first to move up, and so having 32 teams with each with their own first round pick is just like a really intriguing storyline for me. Like, are we going to really get 32 teams picking in the first round, or is like what's going to happen towards the end there? So that's the big intriguing thing for me is that like there's not more of a clamoring to move up in the draft, this year. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, feels like a good but not great class. That's what we keep hearing.
Yeah,
Lots of good starters, not a lot of studs. Tennessee taking a quarterback in a class where I don't think Cam Ward would be the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in most recent
probably right.
classes is interesting. But at the same token, you need a quarterback. Your quarterback sucks. You got the first overall pick. How do you not take a quarterback?
There's, speaking of quarterbacks, there's also intrigue with the Giants going back out to Colorado for one more
Yeah,
final workout with Shooter Sanders. Like, I mean, that just tells me that. Well, I don't want to trash like these former Bills guys, but like, what I don't know what the Giants are doing, man. Like, are like if they're not sold on him or out on him by now, like, what's this final workout really going to determine here? Like, yeah, they got to like paint or get off the ladder here.
yeah, I'll say this too. When it comes to the draft, they're going to be the first thing that's really, really interesting because Cam Ward's going to go to Tennessee. And Cleveland, they're going to take Hunter or Carter, probably Carter, but they could take either or. So then it comes to do the Giants take one of those two, or do they take Sanders? That's going to be the first, like, truly, really intriguing thing of the draft. Like I said, though, you'll be back with me next Wednesday, and we'll go over more draft stuff. Of course, we'll have more Bills talk as well. Make sure you follow Matt on Twitter and Blue Sky at Matt Rich Warren. Check out SB Nation as always. Thanks, buddy. And again, man, I don't know what it is. You and I get together and StreamYard wants to suck. My internet wants to suck. I don't know what the hell's going on, but we'll get it figured out, man. Appreciate you as always, dude. I'll be back with live actually tonight if you're listening to this on Wednesday. Nate Gary, Chris Trapasso. Talk to them.